Hi guys, Jason here. Welcome to the channel. Today we're looking at a 1976 JMP. It's the good old 4-hole plexi style circuit, the 1959 Super Lead circuit. It was sent to me by Justin, who lives in Adelaide here in Australia, and he had bought it from a guy who told him it was stock save for a master volume mod. He sent it here because, well, he needed me to service it, but he also knew that it had an extra preamp tube already drilled into the chassis, right? So this thing's got 4 12AX7s rather than the regular 3, and then obviously 4 EL34s for a 100 watt amp. Now, this thing has clearly been modded, right? It's got an extra preamp tube, a little bit suspicious, but apparently it had only had a master volume mod, whatever that is, made to it. And Justin wanted the S.I.R 36 style mod, which is what I've done. It's what you've been listening to in the intro to this clip. Now, when someone tells you the amp is stock, don't believe them, right? This thing, when I opened it up, as you will see in the kind of at the bench section of this clip, was probably the most furthest from stock of any JMP or Marshall that's been in here for me to look at. This thing took a lot of work to rip out the mods that had been done to it previously, and we haven't put it back to stock clearly because, you know, Justin wanted this thing to be kind of gained up, and as you can hear in the clip, right, the S.I.R 36 style, and I kind of do a few tweaks to it to, you know, kind of keep a bit of top end under control in this thing, because the S.I.R mods are very cutting and biting, you know, if implemented. It's just kind of stock, I think. Have a look at the restoration. We bought this thing back. I've added an effects loop in it as well, and I have done my best to reuse the holes that had been drilled into the back of this chassis, right? So it had a send and return jack already put in for the early effects loop that was in the amp. I've reused those. It had 2 other holes put in it, so I decided to reuse those with a variable depth pot and a variable negative feedback or response pot, which kind of makes, you know, makes the amp very tunable and adjustable in terms of its power amp section. Today we're looking at this guy. It's a 1976 JMP 1959 circuit, right? So good old 4-holer. This guy has obviously seen a bit of action. Now, interestingly on the back, it's had a bit of work done to it, right? So you can see someone's put an effects loop in it. I'm tipping that that is a post-phase inverter master. I have no idea what this is. This amp was actually sent to me to perform the S.I.R number 36 mod on it, right, which does involve the addition of an extra 12AX7, an extra preamp tube. But the owner tells me that this amp's already been drilled out for one, or already has one, but it's not connected or something, right? I'm not sure. But let's open this up and see what's going on. Alright, first look at this, guys. These are Slipvana EL34s. It's been recapped at some point. Tube amp doctor caps. Here's our extra gain stage. So he was right, there is an extra tube in here. Looks like we've got JJ's all the way through. I have no idea how this is wired, but the fact that there's a tube in there makes me think that it hasn't been disconnected or anything. Transformers look original. This PT looks, yeah, I think maybe new. All right, have a look at this, would you? Oh my God. I don't even know where to start in describing what this is. Holy shit, I haven't traced this out. I've just kind of been looking at it for the last minute, trying to figure out what to say. Clearly, this is all not original. It's set up for this extra gain stage, using both sides of it. Yep, I don't know what to say about that. I need to try and trace out what the hell's going on here. And then I'm going to need to talk to Justin, who owns this amp. I need to have a discussion about what he wants to do here. There's an effects loop board of some description that is hand etched, right? Someone's actually masked off and hand etched into some blank blank printed circuit board. This is the presence pot, because the presence pot, it's coming off the treble wiper here into this, which looks like a volume, right? It's a pre-loop volume, like a normal master volume, I guess, right? But it's pre-loop because I'm kind of tracing this and that bit of coax heads off over here and goes into this board. So I'm assuming that's the send and return. It must come from here and back into the phase inverter is my guess. Haven't traced that out yet. Look at what's going on here. This red wire is coming off the screen supply. The screen supply node, a couple of drop-in resistors and some Zener diodes are set up, drop down to DC voltage, and that red wire there is heading off and it's coming on to this loop board. So that's how it's getting power. Yeah, holy crap. I think that's a replacement power transformer. Definitely not original. The original, you can see the holes here, I guess, for the original. So it's had a power transformer replaced at some point. Yeah, this thing's been modded to hell. I'm not too sure what to do. I'm going to speak to Justin and see what he wants to be done with this. All right, well, I have managed to roughly trace out what the hell is going on with this, these mods. The original inputs, right, they do come into V1 here in the normal way. This side then heads across into the grid, the input of this extra triode or extra gain stage, and it cascades, right? So it comes out of here and cascades through a 470k voltage divider. It's a 470 picofarad over it into the other side. All right, from here, it then makes its way, this shielded coax here, straight into the cathode follower stage. All right, the cathode follower is driving the tone stack in the normal way. Out of the treble wiper, we're over here. This is the send volume for the effects loop. Okay. Here's the send here. The return comes back through this volume pot here into this stage. All right, so he's used this, what would normally be the third gain stage in a standard Marshall. He's used that as a recovery stage basically for the loop, and from there that white wire connects directly to the phase inverter, and you can see the input to the phase inverter would normally be here, this brown wire that's been cut, and it would come in through this 0.022 microfarad cap, and he's just cut that. I can feel the legs are still soldered in there. I've spoken with the owner of this amp, Justin, and he was told that this amp had been modded by a certified Marshall tech in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. I don't believe it. This is a bit of a mess. I've turned the amp on actually and just played it into the speaker cap I've got under the bench here, and it hums and buzzes and whines. It's awful. You see, there's no, it's a kind of high gain amp, right? Because it's cascading stages, and the only bit of shielded signal wire is this one. All this other stuff, none of it's shielded. So yeah, it sounds pretty ordinary. Anyway, he's agreed that I'm going to rip all this out. I'm going to rip it all out and take it basically back. We're going to redo the front end into a 2203 style circuit, so you'll have a high and a low input here. These two will be blocked off. This will become the preamp gain. This will become the master volume. This is the presence pot, which has been moved to the back. It'll go back over here where it should be. I'll probably reuse, we've got two holes here drilled in, so I might do variable negative feedback and a depth. On here, we're going to take this effects loop out and put one of mine in. And we're going to do the S.I.R 36, right? So, which is going to be, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 gain stages cathode follower. Bit of work here, but it's a 76 Marshall, it's worth restoring. All right, I just couldn't resist showing this, right? So I'm in the middle of stripping all this out, bringing it back, right? And this effects loop board, here it is, stuck on the wall of the chassis, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, okay, it's probably glued on. I pull it, it's blue tack. Look at that. Fucking blue tack, unreal. so we are now looking at a very different amp than when I first opened this thing up. So let me go through some of the bits and pieces in here. Look, the S.I.R 36 mod, you know, you can find that schematic on the internet. If you have a look at my previous video where I modded a 2203 reissue into a 36, you'll kind of see there I detail it, you know, nuts and bolts of the schematic. But effectively it's a dual 10K cold clipper, right? So you've got the first gain stage here. I'm dealing with the cathode resistors here, 2K7 with a 0.68 bypass. Then we go into the second cathode, which is a 10K, and you have a 0.1 microfarad bypass cap there. This brings a lot of top end into the amp. And the third gain stage is this one over here. I'll include some photos of that in the video so you can kind of see how it's set up. But it's a 100K plate resistor with a 10K cathode, no bypass cap. Okay, and then a voltage divider off this 0.022 microfarad coupling cap. And from here, you trace this black wire, it comes into the grid of what is the 1, 2, 3, 4th gain stage, right? And then cathode follower, and then on we go to a pretty much stock Marshall tone stack and set up from there on in. So look, with any amp that you add, once you get this many gain stages in an amp, right? You know, 1, 2, 3, 4, you really need to be careful about your wiring. Three gain stages and a cathode follower, which is the kind of standard 2203, you can get away with a lot. You know, you can get, you know, 2K7 and put a 2K7 in here and bypass caps and all the rest of it. You get a lot of gain out of the amp by doing that, and you don't need to be as kind of meticulous with your wiring and your layout and other things. As soon as you have this extra gain stage in, things get hairy very quickly. So a couple of tips, if I may. Use shielded wiring for everything. And you can see, running all this shielded wiring, you can see I've used it everywhere, right? From the input to the grid of the first gain stage, to the input of the grid of the second gain stage, to the input of the grid of the third gain stage, right? Coming off the output of this third gain stage, because this wire is, you know, it's got to run kind of through here, shielded, everything. I've reused the send and return jacks on this amp. I'm reusing obviously the holes that have been already drilled in. And here's my head first effects loop here, mounted on standoffs. So, you know, I've got to run some fairly lengthy cables, right? Send and return over to the pre-existing holes, all shielded. Running shielded cables are a pain in the ass in terms of the amount of prep work that you need to do, stripping and so on, but it's totally worth it. This amp is dead silent. I mean, it doesn't have any hum at idle, which is fantastic, like 100 hertz or 120 hertz, which is great. Probably because it has been recapped, right? And so it's in pretty good nick from that perspective. But in terms of kind of, you know, gain noise through the preamp, it's nice and quiet. I mean, the amp's, you know, up at a reasonable volume through a 4x12. You can kind of hear that it's on, but only just, right? And then you know, turn your volume up on your guitar and you know that it's going. The other thing that I want to talk about, and this really comes into play, I think, for two factors, is oscillation, right? And the two factors are, in this 36 style mod, and I say style mod because I've got a few changes in here that I like to implement that, you know, just kind of give it, you know, my take on this style of mod. One of them is related to the oscillation that you can get in a setup like this. Now, I said two factors, right? Factor number one is that extra gain stage. 1, 2, 3, 4 gain stage per cathode follower. That combined with this guy here, a 0.1 microfarad bypass cap on the second gain stage here,
This is really aggressive in the top end and adds a real kind of character to any amp that you do this to. But you've got to kind of be careful that the amount of top end that this thing will generate can lead to oscillation problems. So, and that's what happened here, right? So in terms of kind of tuning this thing and getting it to where I like to hear it, this trick, you've seen this before on the channel. I do it a lot where necessary. I've got a 1 nanofarad bright cap, that's standard Marshall, right? But I've also got a cap from the input of this gain pot to ground. Okay, this orange ceramic here, and you can set this value to taste, 500 picofarad, 1000, 1200 picofarad, all the way up to, probably as much as 2200, which is, 0.0022 microfarad. At that point, you're kind of really starting to peel off a lot of top end and upper mid range to ground. But you can really voice the amp to your tastes. If you're finding it that it's, too much ice pick, too much top end, that's harsh. And if you're getting oscillating, and by oscillating, I mean when you plug a guitar in here and the input's no longer grounded, tune your guitar volume up and it just starts squealing, even if you're not close to the amp. Sometimes these things will oscillate and squeal even when the input's grounded. But that not only allowed me to voice the amp to how I wanted to hear it, but it solved that oscillation problem. All right, well, let me know what you think in the comments of the video, guys. I hope this was helpful.
Well, that's it for today's clip, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, then please do give me a thumbs up and ring the bell. You'll be notified of new content, and I'll see you next time.